Quick one before the episode starts. For anyone who is listening to this podcast right now, if I could ask a favour from you. If you enjoy this podcast, please could you hit that follow button on your app. It helps this show more than you'll ever know. And the bigger the show gets, the bigger the episodes get, and the bigger the content and value you will get. My name's Lloyd James, and I'm a professional photographer, videographer, and content creator. Welcome to the Creative Slice with Lloyd James. Thank you and enjoy. Welcome everyone. This is, I'm going to call it series or episode even, number 3. And today I've been joined by Jen. Big round of applause. Yay, just me clapping and you. Perfect. Who cares? Whatever.
I'm just going to double check the camera because I've got so weird not being behind the camera, and I'm going to just double check that I press record.
That's fine. You go and check. You go and check.
Yeah, no, we're recording. We're all good. You know, it's like an absolute fear. You haven't pressed the record button.
No, I know. How exciting. Jen, thank you so much for, I will say, first of all, reaching out, I guess, on one of my very first episodes that I released last week. And then you put the big bombshell out there and you were like, hey, how about we record a podcast together? And I was like, absolutely, let's do it. So
100%.
First guest on the Creative Slice, I guess.
Yeah.
Tell
Didn't know
me
if you even
everything.
wanted it to be that, but it is now.
It is now. It's like episode number 3, right? I'm going to release another one before this one, but episode number 3 with Jen. Jen, tell us everything about you. We want to know where you're from, why are you in Australia, and what's your creativity bringing you to this podcast? Let's go.
Okay, amazing. So I'm Jen. I live in the UK. I guess I've had an interesting cultural background. My mum is Australian, so it's a little bit of a reason why I'm here at the moment trying to work. And my father is Dutch, but I was born in Switzerland as well. And we had a great conversation about that.
We did. Like, just before we obviously came onto the podcast, I'd like to just get to know the person very, very briefly. And ironically, I can't believe we were literally skiing on the same slopes, right?
Yeah. We were born literally like towns apart, and we've grown
Switzerland
up.
of all places.
Yeah.
Can't believe it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Wild.
That's crazy. And do you find it like when people say to you like, oh, where's your, your country of birth, and you say Switzerland, and people just sort of like, it's almost like a Switzerland. I've heard of it. It's beautiful, but like, really, right? I almost get a sense of, oh, he's rich.
Yeah, they have like the Swiss bank. That's all you get. Like, it's all people know.
Absolutely, the Swiss bank. They literally go the Swiss bank, and I'm going, no, there's not anything of that. No reflection on that. I said it is expensive, but I've definitely known that. Definitely not the Swiss bank does not reflect it. That's for sure. So, Jen, obviously from the UK, tell us a little bit more. What is it that you do over there? Like,
so I would say, growing up, I always had a camera on me, but never thought it would be a career. Genuinely never. I was riding my horses. That was a career path at a certain point. And then I went into fashion design. And that's, I guess, where my fashion spark sort of all came about. Realized I wasn't brutal enough to be in the actual fashion design industry. I went to Amsterdam University and it just wasn't for me. So anyway, I was like, God, what do I do? And I was just always like playing with my cameras, and I just always have. But anyway, I actually went on and did a graphic design course. So I ended up at a really amazing agency in East London, worked there for quite a while. And then I was just suddenly, I was working with lots of other creatives. We were quite a small agency, and we'd work with like freelance videographers and photographers, and I actually got to know some videographers really well. And I was like, this film business, this is pretty cool. Like, this is nice. Like, so I saved my pennies, and I remember I bought myself my first camera, like video camera, was the Sony a7S II. And I basically just started to play, and it was just sort of, it was a lot of experimenting. And then I was like, God, sitting at a desk as a graphic designer is really boring. Like, I want to be doing this. So also as like a female, I didn't feel like there were many female videographers. So like, that was kind of part of me also wanted to be like, come on, let's do it for the girls.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Plug that gap.
Exactly. But anyway, I went and actually dropped my days down to 4 days a week as a graphic designer. And I slowly I grafted. I just shot anything I could, literally anything, weddings, funerals, baby wakes. Yeah, like anything. I would just be like...
Funerals? Hold on a second. You went and shot funerals?
Yeah.
If you actually think about it... I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I don't want to turn this into like a morbid podcast, but if you think about it, that's probably a really good business to get into, really. Filming, or I don't know if you take photos, but don't people want like recordings and stuff?
Yeah.
And
right. Especially around COVID time. So one of my really good friends owns a funeral company, and she was the one that brought me along. She was like, we really need someone to film. Like it's not my thing now, but like just to learn how cameras work and get started, it was great. Like it's as morbid as it is, it's you learn a lot. You learn a lot from anything you shoot. You learn a lot. So
amazing.
So
when was that? How many years ago? Where's the time frame here?
That was 2017.
Okay.
And so it was literally just, and I just reached out to whoever. I'd literally be like, and 9 times out of 10 I'd be rejected. But the 1 time out of 10, I'd be like, hey, let's go. And then, it wasn't perfect because I was learning. But I just kept going. I then found an amazing client that basically offered me monthly work. And this is where I know maybe we want to talk a little bit, because this is kind of how I bridged that gap from being working at a company to then being freelancer, because that's hard, right? It's that leap is the part that I think I get asked a lot, like, how did you do that? How did you navigate that? Yeah,
go on. Yeah, so this is the awkward bit. You go. I'll go again. So just let's take a moment, to absorb what you've just explained, and because a lot of people listening to this podcast or that follow my channels, they all come to me. I say all. Most of them come to me, and then they ask about how did you get your paid jobs. I'm thinking of taking photography more seriously, because they want to know the nitty-gritty of how perhaps you communicate with clients. Now, one thing I've picked up from you're saying you reached out to a lot of people, you created relationships. Do you want to go a little bit more in-depth about that, perhaps in your early stages? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that is literally the foundation of starting. That is what you have to do. You haven't got a portfolio. You haven't got anything to show. You don't have anyone. You don't have anything like a recommendation. You need to build people's trust. So in doing so, you can't charge. You need to be creative and come up with your own ideas, but almost pitch your work. So I would be let's try and think of one of my things. So I went and shot some weddings, but I didn't have a wedding video to shoot. So a friend of mine, a very loose friend of a friend, was having a wedding, and I know she didn't have budget for a videographer. So I just reached out to her and said, look, do you want someone to shoot? Obviously no pressure. Do you want someone to shoot a wedding? Because I'd love to do it for free. And I just went and did it. And then, so I think it's finding, seeking out opportunities. You got to be proactive about it. They're not going to come to you. So talking to people, making relationships, reaching out online, you can't just sit on your backside. You gotta grasp
and wait for it to come. And do you know what? I love that, and I feel that really needs to be accentuated and pushed. The fact that with today's technology that we have literally at our fingertips, I totally relate to what you're saying, that you have to put yourself out there, because there's so much noise with other creatives doing what they do best, and businesses wanting more and more content to go online, because everything is on the internet now. Let's be honest, towns and shops, they're slowly, call it dying. It's like, it's almost that old vinyl record thing, isn't it? It's like you like the tactile feel of an old vinyl record, but realistically, what's more practical is to go and get an MP3 or listen to Spotify, and it's there direct, it's easily accessible to you, right? So when we look at our craft, people will need, or businesses will need, more and more of either, whether it's good quality content or UGC content. I think that's going to be always needed in our field of work. And I think when you say, you got to go out there and reach out, I couldn't agree more. There is so many talented creatives out there. Yeah. There are so many of them that some of them are more proactive than others, and that's fine. But I think that, like, if you want to make a monetary value and make this into a business for yourself, you have to put your best foot forward. And so, going on that topic, do you remember what your first big gig, or let's go with like your big brand or business that you really wanted to land and work for? So you've done the sort of funeral parlors and the weddings. What was the sort of next big brand or business you were like, yes, this is what I've really wanted to do as a job or land as a job? Can you remember any of those?
So I've got to be honest, I had a bit of a unique situation because I was still working at the agency that I was, a creative agency. We worked with a lot of different brands like Nike, Adidas, Fitbit, so some big brands. And because my boss was, he's such a dude. We still speak now. He's amazing. Because he kind of saw what I was doing in my free time, I guess. He was like, do you just want to go, because we do like big installs and create like whole big events for them. And he was like, do you want to go and do some behind the scenes for them? So then I'd go along to like Nike install and be shooting for Nike. But like,
did you come across any like famous people like at Nike, or was it like that?
Yeah, kind of. And it was just like me and my little camera getting some behind the scenes. And behind the scenes wasn't really as massive as it is now. Like, we're talking nearly six years ago. But it was, but it wasn't like, and like I remember just being like, this is like no one everyone was like, she's just doing her thing. Like, she doesn't really know what she's doing. She's just kind of playing. But looking back now, that work it's not good. But because I then had those names on my portfolio, I then was looked at more. So I got to give, it's a little bit of a unique situation. I also do believe in timing. Like, I'm a bit of a little bit.
Timing's a big thing, right?
It's huge. It's huge.
And I think that's also something that I perhaps that like you got to be aware that like there's got to be the right time, and although a lot of people search for that right time, and people want to go out there and they're searching for it, but sometimes you just got to wait for it, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. And I also think like kind of in the similar like searching for is your style. So I remember at the start, I was like, everyone was like, so what's your style? And I was like, I don't know my style. Like, I knew what it was as a graphic designer, but as a videographer at the time, because I didn't even start my photography then as like paid work, I didn't know. And I was like, oh God, and I doubted myself. And I was like, oh God, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm just being a bit like, this can't be a career. But yeah, I remember it just being timing and being kind of trusting the process and being really open to everything and anything. Like not everything was successful. And I think I've learned more from my failures than I ever have from my successes.
Yeah, so amazing. And I just think it's grabbing the opportunities that come to you, especially at the beginning stages, are so important as a creative. And I think it's just about building that portfolio, like you say, because even to this day now, when I see an opportunity and I haven't shot it or I haven't created it before, I will grab it because I will add that to my portfolio.
Yeah.
Because who knows, down the track, someone will say, have you done something like this? And I can easily pull it out and kind of go, look, you can give that visual representation to that client and go, look, this is what I've done for this client. And at the same time, although you might have done it for free, you can quite easily then start sort of, when you start scaling your business and building your business, that you can then turn around and go, hey, look, this kind of project cost my last client this amount.
Yeah.
So then it kind of gives you a bit of a, it takes a bit of balls to do that, I think. But at the same time, I think it's really important to have those layers of foundation of work that you have there, then you can fall back on, then actually try and put a price on it. So moving forward from building that portfolio that you've gained and you've built, right, over the years, I'm just on your Instagram now as we speak, and I'm looking at your very first Instagram post that you posted 199 weeks ago.
God, what even is that? Oh, cringe.
On the 12th of April 2019. And it says here, campaign launches today for Martha Stance?
Martha Stance, yes.
Martha Stance, sorry. So I'm reading it here. I was lucky enough to be on set working for Hello Outside to capture some behind the scenes that you mentioned on Martha Stance's first campaign shoot. And go and check out what they have done in store. The pieces and designs are to die for. And obviously, so that is like your first Instagram photography, I feel, that you've posted. You got 51 likes, by the way. And I'll like it right now. That makes it 52 likes, right? So, look.
Love that.
But it's so interesting to sometimes so important to come back to those moments of where you first posted those Instagrams or, posted that first... that first piece of work, creative work. And, I'm looking on here that someone called Nissa with a verified account put a love heart on there. Whoever she is, might be some random, whoever. That's right. So, so from those behind the scenes moments, can you recall when was your first paid gig in the UK and how did you feel about that? What was that feeling? Because a lot of the listeners here are going, I want to take it more seriously. And those conversations about money, about putting a value on your craft is not easy. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
how
definitely.
did you feel? Let's take us back a little bit. How did you feel on that first quote? What did that look like? How much did you charge, if you want to share that?
Yeah.
And what did you deliver?
Gosh. Right, where to start? So that, to be fair, that post that you've just read, that was still that was the agency that I used to work for. So that was still that side. And then I actually can't remember what my first gig was by myself. But I do. Right. So she is called Jenna Zoe. She is if I say human design, does that mean anything?
Vaguely. Explain it a little bit more in depth. What does that? What does human design mean?
I wanted to say, it's very holistic. It's kind of like reading cards, kind of that kind of world, wellness, sort of astronomic world. And anyway, I got the contact and I tried to be super professional. I was like, right, this is the time I'm gonna ask to be paid for work. And I remember being like, what the hell do I charge? What does a freelancer charge? And how do I go about, I don't know how long it's going to take me to edit. I don't know what, I didn't know. So
it's not as if you're going to jump on ChatGPT and ask the question, are you? Let's be honest, back then.
Exactly. So I worked out what I earn as a salary and I earned what I worked out as a day rate as a graphic designer as a paid salary. Knowing that freelancers would get paid more, but I was like, you know what? If I'm getting paid what I do now, and that's good enough for me. I mean, any amount of payment I was happy to take. It was just the fact that it was paid work was exciting.
Do you remember how much that was?
Oh, like £150. So what's
that about? $270?
Yeah, but I thought that was a lot. And I was thinking, oh God, they're not going to go for it. Oh God, I was stressing so much. And I was thinking, this is not going to happen. Anyway, they come back straight away. Obviously, they're like, yep, absolutely great. I charged $150 to get to the location, which was 2 hours away. We shot all day. I had 2 cameras on the go, 2 mics set up. I also had my sister came along with me as my assistant.
Wow.
Bless my sister. And I then spent probably about 4 days editing. So it was like a week's work for £150. So, you know, like it was the biggest lesson. It was amazing. And she loved the work and it was great. And, you know, like looking back now, I would do a better job. But of course, you're never going to be perfect on day dot. But yeah, I was so happy that I did it. And then I sent my invoice, my first little 001 invoice, and I got paid for my first work.
Amazing. That's so good. And that feeling is there's all sorts of like nerves, I guess. It's kind of, are they going to pay? Are they going to question it? Are they this? Are they that? And then the minute those numbers fall into your bank account, you're like, I actually got paid for this. And
I did a thing.
Do you find, do you find that's almost like a buzz, isn't it? You get a buzz.
I felt so fulfilled, and it really didn't matter about the amount. It was just the fact that, you know, actually what was more enjoyment was their email back saying how much they loved the work. And then that's when I knew, for me, it wasn't a money thing, it was a passion thing. And we all need money. We all need money to live, and we all need money to. And I do struggle with the creative world when they're sort of like, oh, you love what you do, you shouldn't be paid. Like, no. I'm good at what I do. And I think this is what a lot of people starting out need to remember and realize, is that your time is money and your time needs to be valued. And if they really wanted to, they could do it themselves, but they can't. So that's why they're asking you to do it, which then you have to be paid for. So
I think that sort of like really marries well with like the first episode that I was talking about, saying that, you know, we are a trade.
Yeah.
Photographers got to be seen as a trade, just like a plumber or a brickie or a doctor or a teacher. I think today, you holding a camera, it's too easy for people to go, it's seen as a hobby, you know, but I think we're breaking that stigma, and that's why Creative Slice and my channel over the years, I've been really trying to open up a bit more to creatives, to explain them that, but also on the flip side is to educate businesses, because I find there are so many businesses, and this is probably where my next question is going, that I find that although they want the content, and you're saying they need to see the value that they're seeing in you, and they approach you because they either like your style or they like what you're going to deliver according to what their needs are. But some businesses won't take that seriously, and it's about teaching businesses that they need to invest in you. So have you found any difficulties in the past of where businesses have gone, look, we love what you do, we really want you on board, they're all hyped up and everything? I've had this multiple times. And then the minute you kind of start saying, hey, look, what does your budget look like? Or, you know, can you please send me, you know, they don't not even say send me an invoice or send me a quote. It's kind of like you're thinking, well, am I going to, and you always have that limbo stage of, am I going to get paid for this? Am I doing this for free? And that conversation of money doesn't come around. I'm sure a lot of creatives face this issue. How do you handle those situations now?
Yeah.
As, call it, a professional photographer, videographer? How do you handle those situations when you sense a red flag coming up and sort of going, hey, look, I've got a feeling that they want this for a cheaper service or even for free? How do you tackle those?
So I've learned over time that those people are a waste of time, and you might as well find out as soon as possible if they're going to be wasting your time, because you might as well be pitching yourself to other clients, or if they're just going to drag out the conversation. So what I do now is I have my rates card, and if someone inquires to me, I will send them straight up my rates card. And this is my approach. I mean, people might have a different way, but I just think if I'm so happy now with how I charge, what I charge for, and I feel like my value is what I could give to the client is exactly what was reflected in my rates card. So don't get me wrong, that's taken me years to have the confidence, I guess, to build that up and back myself. And of course, there's room for discussion. I'm flexible, and I love to work with people and help people out. But like, you know, there's so much business out there, you know, and if you're
so
not,
much, isn't there? I say that every day. I say that regularly.
And if you're not matching up to where my level is of like, because as much as there is like a passion and love of what I do, but if I'm not getting paid and I don't feel valued, I'm not going to put 100% in. We're human. We just wouldn't. Even if you really want to, you just wouldn't. So if it also depends, because I think there are times where, so like I'm in Sydney, and I have been in Sydney for the last month, and I have done no paid work. It's all been creative, and, you know, but that was my decision, you know? So, and I took on board, and I was like, no, I actually don't want to be paid. I want to get creative and have some creative sparks flying. But like, that was my choice. That wasn't someone else's choice. So I think just being just getting it done, like just being a bit bullshit and being like, look, hey, be up front. And it actually, 9 times out of 10, if you're a bit more confident, they'll have more respect for you. They'll be like, oh, she knows what she's talking about, or he knows what he's talking about, you know? And the confidence that you give them comes like hand in hand, and it reflects back.
I couldn't agree more. I find that like when you value your craft, they take you more seriously.
100%.
Like, and you can tell straight away when someone sort of, the tone of voice does change when you do start talking about a monetary value for what you're worth. The tone of voice will change quite suddenly, or the body language will change, and you'll know straight away, and you'll notice that red flag. So that's really interesting. And I find that interesting that you give clients a rates card when they say, what's your rates? And creators have different ways of presenting their quotes. I find that really interesting. I've always had this theory that if I was to give a rates card to a client and then they say, great, you know, hypothetically, $500 starting rate for photography shoot, they say, great, can you come over to LA? I'd be like, hold on a second. Well, that's $500 for Perth, right, within the metro area. So where I when I give my quotes, I'm more of a person that likes to talk and gauge where I'm sitting with the client, because I've always had this analogy that if I give a rates card to a random Instagram message, and then, you know, later on to find out that, hold on, Nike, there's a person that works at Nike that LeBron James wants a campaign shoot, and I've charged $500, I'll be shooting myself in the foot, right? So I always like to know who I'm dealing or who I'm talking to before I kind of go, here's my rates card or whatever it means. So do you have a bit of a strategy for leading up to before you sort of present that to them?
Yeah, for sure. So I think you can tell when you get a request, I'm not going to lie. Like if someone's gone on your website and actually like you can be like, oh, you've seen, they've gone through your work and they've sent you an email, they've taken time and they're serious about what they're talking about. If they've just dropped you a DM, 9 times out of 10, it's crap.
It's not genuine, or it's crap. It's just like, yeah, they're just browsing. They're just browsing.
Yeah.
It's like when you walk into a shop and the assistant says, oh, can I help you? And you're just like, I'm just looking.
You know what I mean?
And whereas you walk in, you pick up the item, you go, what size? Do you have this in a double XL or an XL or whatever? Now you're serious. Now the assistant's got to work for, you know, to make that sale, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So yeah, I think there are strategies, and also part of, So say if I'm unsure on the client, I have a set of questions, and I have I have them part of my rates card, but if I'm not quite sure, I will send them, I think it's 20 questions. So I can really understand what the brand wants from me. If I can deliver what they want, because I might not be the photographer that they need, because I'm not going to take on work that doesn't resonate or vice versa.
Your camera.
I'm just going to check.
Good point.
Sorry,
go for it.
2 secs.
You go, you check. I'm just going to check my camera from here. I think I've got 28 minutes, but I'm going to risk it for a biscuit. So if you pause and start yours.
That was amazing. That was like 10 seconds left. So, yeah.
Was it? Okay. And then I'll look at mine from now. I think I'm at 20. Do you know what? I've got 15 seconds to go. And if it stops, that's fine. I'll use your clip. We'll do some clever editing here. Like, I'll
Get
cut
creative.
things in and out or whatever. So yeah, I've literally got like, hold on,
1.
3, 2, 1.
No.
Oh, it has stopped recording. There you go. So I'm going to go and press. You hold fire. Can you continue talking about your rates card and tell our audience a little bit more about that while I'll go and press record on my camera?
Hold
on, I'll be back.
So fluid. So basically it's sorry, where were we at? Client. Figure out what the client wants, because you don't waste their time. You don't waste your own time. Again, time is like probably it is money and it's so valuable. Like I think as a freelancer, that is probably one of your biggest little shells you want to protect, put it that way. Because you have to wear many hats, and it's the more time you put into things that you're going to get out of and be positive, the better. But also, it is also, again, comes back to the vitamin R, as I like to say, relations. It's maybe that client at that point is not right for whatever the project is and you right now, but they might have another project like 2 months down the line, 5 years down the line. You never know. So even just, and people talk. The industry is smaller than you think, and people talk. And most of my work, I would say, is recommendations. And that is the nicest way to work, because I have now built up in the UK the nicest client base. Like I have the nicest clients. I'm so grateful for them. And it just reflects, it just keeps rolling and rolling. So it's just a lovely way.
And it becomes a snowballing effect, right? So it's like you create some content for a business or a brand or an individual, and if they love the work, it's gonna naturally, they can only rave about it and say it to their friends, even if it's their mum and dad or their brother and sister. And I'm always a believer that like a conversation will always come from a good memory, right? And so if you can create a good memory, and in regards to a creative piece of work, like what we do, creating content, whether it's on a mobile phone or with a professional camera, I think that at the end of the day, the most important part is that if you're able to create that memory and bring that sort of sense of I want to say in French, a reconnaissance, like something just to bring back like a thought that is happy, then they're going to positively talk about your craft. So I think that's super important. So now sort of like, obviously we understand about like the, your journey you've come across as a creator, and you've gone through your battles of, identifying your price point in the industry. Let's move forward. So you've come from the UK, you've got a tight client base. Let's say things are running really smoothly, you're getting good recommendations. And then next thing I know, you're in Australia. Okay, whether you're traveling for a bit of fun because you're escaping the winter from, the UK and so on. Like, let's not go into that. But like, what I'm really interested to hear now is you have built such a tight community within your branding, your business, with your clientele. How did you feel about, even if it's for traveling for a few months away from that and coming to wherever country, coming here to Australia and so on, do you have a sense of fear that someone else might jump into your space? Because let's say a client needs a photo shoot tomorrow or next week, and from our previous conversation, you said London is a fast-paced city. People wanted things yesterday. They're not as relaxed and chilled as they are perhaps here in Australia, and perhaps maybe not as forgiving, shall we say. Does that give you a sense of a bit of anxiety? How do you feel about that? Because if you're coming here and you're working, you said you created some collaborations here to test the waters, I guess. We don't know where the future might take you, but in saying that, there has to be an element of anxiety leaving that behind, thinking, are they going to find someone better? How do you feel about all of that?
Like,
so let's talk about from your transition.
I haven't said that out loud to anyone, but I definitely, these are all thoughts I had. Okay, a few things. So I guess just to go back a little bit, obviously I started in videography, and I then always had my photography, and I never thought that could be a career. But then I kind of changed, my perception, and I realized that I could run them side by side. Why I'm saying this is because I've actually taken on more photography and more work at home as being more of a photographer than a videographer. And the stuff, like what I was creating at home with all my lovely clients at home, was amazing. And I have built up really, really, really great relationships. Are we good? We good? We all good? No, all good. Really great relationships with my clients, and everything was going well and swimmingly. And part of me was like, am I just going crazy, or do I need a challenge? Basically, I wanted to set myself a challenge. And don't get me wrong, all those thoughts went through my head. Oh, what if someone, because there are some great photographers in London. There's some of my friends, they're brilliant. And if anything, I had to recommend them because to my regulars, let's say, because they still needed someone to shoot. I left the UK end of November. I guess part of me was like, I'm hoping that I've got such a good relationship and trust with my clients that when I come back, we will, and I've got them booked in, so I'm assuming that it's still going ahead. And I have, and again, that's where it comes into play, that real building that relationship with your client is so important, and keeping that rapport, and just keeping that going. But I just wanted a challenge. I wanted to challenge myself. I needed some fresh ideas, and that's why I guess I said before, I wasn't looking for pay work out here. I wanted something to inspire me. And I think I got to the stage where I was coasting. Is that a word? That's the word to use. And I wanted to see, if we don't step out of our comfort zone, we're never going to know what our potential will be. And don't get me wrong, sometimes grass will grow greener, and it could have been an absolute flop here. But actually, I think it's been the world of good for me, and I've learned so much in myself with my photography. It's pushed me to another level, and now I feel like I can take those skills back home. Hopefully, come back here one day again, but back home and give my clients even more than I did before. So I've leveled up,
Sure.
Yeah.
Leveled up, literally. And I'll call that
100%.
investing in yourself, right? So whether you invest in a online course, or in a mentor, or you invest in going on these experiences to improve your photography, this is you having, call it a holiday or call it a challenge, and to challenge yourself. That is so important, because that is you investing in your creativity, your creative flair. But at the same time, what I find interesting is you said that you were coasting, and I'm going to talk about this in some episodes in the future, because when you're coasting, I'm calling that, we've got a creative block, right? Creative block is where I can't think of anything. I don't know. It doesn't matter how much research you do. It's like you're almost at that standstill, that red light that's never going green, right? But that coasting creative block is slightly different. It's like that monotone voice, it's almost what I can describe like being on the plane, and you just hear that droning noise all the time, and it's never going away. You're just on autopilot. You know what you're doing. You deliver the content day in and day out. Your clients are happy. It's great. But within yourself, you kind of feel a lack of fulfillment. You're thinking, well, I've done this 100 times. I can do it with my eyes closed, because you've got the experience. And I'll call that, that sort of creative block, it's stagnant. Yeah. It's stagnant, isn't it? It just doesn't move. So you coming out here is obviously you're investing in yourself, trying to reconnect some pathways to sort of reconnect that creativity, which is amazing. Now, you've obviously done some collaborations in Sydney. How did you go about getting those collaborations? Because I presume you're well-established brand in, you know, like I said, you're well-established brand in London.
God,
You've
no.
come to Sydney. No one knows who you are.
Yeah.
They can look at your Instagram and go, wow, great, but who are you? How did you reach out to this first, or these people, or the brand, or the business you collaborated with? How did you go about that? And second of all, is you've delivered the content. How did they feel about that?
Amazing. So I'm actually going to share with you, I guess, a lesson learned and a failure that I've learned in this last month. So obviously, yeah, you're right. I knew no one. Like I didn't know. I didn't have any. Well, we've spoken on Instagram, but I didn't know. Like I don't know any creators this side of the world. I don't even know any models, and I've just not worked this side of the world at all. So it's all very new. I didn't know how people approach things, if it was different back in Europe. And on the whole, it's pretty similar, but there are some differences. Everyone's so much more laid. So yeah.
What are those? What are those? I want to know what the differences are between, because there might be someone listening here going, I'm going to go to Europe for the summer. I'm going to go and get some creative jobs. What are the main differences you have found between London and here?
People in London, they love a plan and they want it done. Like it's kind of a bit like rush last minute, let's go. Whereas here, I kind of felt like it was like, you want to create some magic, and it was like, sweet, yeah, let's see if we can do it like next Wednesday. And then it was just like, and then Wednesday, it's a bit shit weather. Should we just try it again tomorrow? You know, it was just so like, I don't know whether this is just my experience, but I don't know if that's like that all the time. But obviously you're way more established over here. But I'm sure you've got like your build up clients. But like as to start out as just like a nobody, a randomer, a little fish in a pond. It was just super, super laid back, which was so nice. But I was like, oh my God, like this, I'm not used to this.
So you come from this fast-paced background to something a bit more chilled and relaxed. You're kind of having to slow down a little bit. So and so this brand that you collaborated with, who are they? Can we give them a shout out on here? Like maybe they might even follow the Creative Slice. Like, is it a lady? Was it a brand? I saw the post and I was like, I want you to tell us a little bit more about that. How did you get it? And what's your next move with them?
My failure, which comes onto this. So my failure was that I emailed so many people, and that is, I think, what I've experienced, a no-go. Like it was like, hey, I'm Jen, I'm a photographer from the UK. Like they probably don't eat, like it's not interesting. They're like, oh well, she's coming from the UK, she's literally going to be here for a month and then she goes again. Like what's the point in working with her? Like there was I can't tell you how many emails, and I researched their name and I went to LinkedIn. I did hours of work, Lloyd, hours. But you know what? And I didn't get any back. And then I was like, right, I'm just approaching this so wrong. Like I don't have a marketing degree. I literally put my hands up to that. So, like it was definitely a lesson learned. And then I was like, I need to be a bit more human about this, like I need to really, be more human. So my style is what I like to shoot is like the wellness world, like all the feel good things, like the fitness active world. And so I found this little studio down in Sydney called Lean Bean Fitness, and they had some lovely Pilates instructors. So I just found them on Instagram and I just went through and I just sent them a little like personal message, like sort of like why I like their look, like if they'd like to, I gave them a bit more of a personal feel. And I said, look, hey, no pressure, but I'm local and I would just really like to just create some cool content with you, and sent them a mood board. Now, I think mood boarding is like such a good tool to try and work with new people because they don't know who you are. Like you're just a random chick. But as soon as they see your vision and if that aligns with them, because you got to remember, we are very creative. We visualize everything as photographers, videographers. Most other people don't. So you have to kind of be like, well, this is in my brain and this is what I want to create for you. And they go, oh, well, that looks really cool. So that would be really cool if you wanted to do that, like you kind of got to make that link.
Yeah. You've got to almost plant that seed, right? You got to plant that seed and it's supporting them with your creative vision. Excuse me. The creative vision is like, it's so important to support your client in seeing what you're seeing, but as well
definitely.
absorbing what they want. And it's a fine balance, right? Because what we think is really cool and in trend and what we think is amazing might not resonate with the client. And I think that what you portray really well on your Instagram is that when I see your work pop up, I can tell you've got your stamp on there. I can tell, oh, yeah, that's Jen's work. But at the same time, as a creative, I can see and I can understand that you've taken in consideration that product or that business, and you are tailoring your brand into their business so they can they can scale off that.
Yeah.
They can monetize off your
definitely.
content.
So there's this lovely girl called Kim. She messaged back to me saying, hey, this sounds great. Like, just let me know what we want to do. And so I, obviously not being from here, I was like, can you give me some like brands that might be cool to like partner with? So she actually reached out to a yoga mat company called Seek Solitude. And I reached out to a company called Plant Water. And I felt like the brands really fitted well. And yeah, we just did like a whole collaboration with all of us. And also the garments that she was wearing was upside. So it was kind of like this whole lifestyle, like 6 different creatives together. And it was just, it's a lot of work, but.
So was the brands also involved with the vision?
A mood board, and they were like, yeah, this is cool. Like, I think because Kim had, she's known like here and people trusted her. They seemed to, again, I think here people trust people more and they're kind of a bit more like, yeah, go for it. Whereas you would not get that in London. You very rarely would get that. They
do. That's interesting you say that, because I find that a lot of people will trust. That I often get, and where my, not failures, but my biggest learning curve has been where it's do what you do best. And I say, and when I hear those words in that sentence, I kind of go, no, yes, I am going to do what I do best, but no, I'm not going to just do it to do it, because I find that if I put my creative stamp onto what I think is best for the business, I have found that sometimes it comes back to bite you, where they go, hey, look, it's not what we envisioned. So I'm massive on making sure I'm very clear on what I'm going to be delivering, what my vision's going to be for them, and for them to give the tick of approval. And then I always follow it up with an email confirmation, hey, look, this is what I'm going to deliver you, right? So that's kind of like that proofing and that sort of making sure everyone's on the same page here. So there's no didn't like this, didn't like that, and it leaves a sour taste in your mouth, their mouth, and it's like that awkward, are they going to pay me, are they going to not, whatever. So I find that really interesting, the fact that you've found a Pilates instructor, found these 2-3 other brands to bring this whole vision together, which complements, I presume, that the Pilates instructor's feed and her flow for her clientele, right? But not only that, you've created some product shots for, did you say a plant company as well, and the yoga mat and so on? Yeah, Plant Water, sorry, yeah. So it's like, you're killing you're killing so many birds with one stone, right? Is that the right saying? Killing birds with one stone? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So which is amazing, because like if you think about it, out of one shot, you can not only sort of say, hey, look, I've got content for a yoga instructor, I've got content for 2 lots of other brands involved. Like I think that's clever creativity, because you can really try and get them together. Because then now, I mean, naturally, my next question, I mean, as a creative, as a business entrepreneur, and sort of like someone that doesn't stop thinking of how I can continue growing, is what happens if the brands now, or where do you think, I'm going to change my question, is where do you think this may lead now if they really like your content?
I am
but
leaving
you're
soon.
leaving soon, right? So what could potentially happen now?
I don't know if I should say this, but I had a really nice conversation with the lady who does the PR for Upside, so the garments, the Upside. And she said, "Oh, hey, we work with because I said, oh, like I've seen you around. It's like, do you have a store in London? Because I was just thinking, well, if I'm making the connections here, if they've got a store in London, then of course I'm going to try and work with them there." And she said, "Oh yeah, we work with a marketing agency, and they sell in like Selfridges, which is like a department store." And so they don't necessarily have a store or shop, but yeah, they do sell in London. And there's actually a brand at home called Her Free Soul, who I work with a lot. And I'm already connecting up, and I'm like visualizing like with their garments what we could create there. It's basically like a wellness, women's health sort of company, and what the Upside have as well. And I can just see that marriage of like two companies connecting together that could also benefit both of them, because it's kind of connecting two sides of the world. So yeah, I don't know. This is just an idea that I've had. So if I can make something like that happen, like great, but we'll see.
You've come on a holiday to re-spark that energy and everything else, and then you're potentially leaving with a international collaboration between two brands. Does that make you an international photographer?
Oh, does it? Can I put that on my?
I think it does. I think it could make you. I think your bio needs to change. Jen, international photographer,
like
Oz, UK. Could you imagine? How sick would that be? This is so cool.
I like it. I mean, the dream is to work summer. So we'll see.
Amazing. Hey, look. So, sort of to wrap things up slowly here. I feel like we got a really good understanding of who Jen was, where you started, where you are currently now in Sydney, and who you've worked with, and so on. Do you have what's your biggest advice, and do you have any tips, anything for our listeners here? Anyone that is going to watch on social media, what would you say to someone who's thinking about taking their photography, videography, content creation, UGC, whatever field they're in? What would you say to them other than just go for it? Can we give them something a bit more value for them to really bite their teeth into, and for them to maybe message you? Because this whole creative life is not just about giving the listeners things to think about. I want it to be people that I bring along and potentially chat more to. I want them to have an open DM to like, hey, look, I heard your podcast, I heard this or whatever. What advice would you give listeners that want to start their business and they're thinking about it to start the business? You get the idea, you get the question. I don't know, I'm not an interviewer, but you know what I mean. Go.
So I would say and it's hard work, it's graft, but I would say, if you've seen a piece of content that really resonates with you and you're like, wow, how did they create that? You're just fascinated by it. Like, I've done this in the past. And I've then I've taken the image or whatever, a couple of images, and I've mood boarded what I think is my interpretation. And I've tried to create, I guess, my spin on what I was inspired by. So whether it be, I mean, there's so much to it. Whether it was like how their editing was, or whether it was maybe the interaction between the model and the cam and the photography, like whatever that thing was that I'm now trying to learn, I guess, from X image or inspiration, go and create it. Like, go and do collaborations, set up collaborations. If you need to try, if you don't try, you don't learn. You need to put yourself, like, it's very well saying, oh yeah, but I'm a photographer, I can do that. But like, can you do that? Like, is it your style? Do you enjoy doing it? So it's time. Like, collaborations is hard work. It's time. It's making sure everyone's happy as well. Like, obviously other people put their time into it, and yeah, it's a lot of back and forth and communication. But if you can then create something that you are so happy with, you can then pitch that. You can then take that. So don't feel like it's a waste of time. Like, you can then take that and pitch it to your dream client. You can sort of go, hey, I've created something like this. It might be up your street, and if it's along their lines, then you might get yourself a job. you know?
Amazing. Jen, thank you so much. I can't believe after one episode, Jen reaches out. Should we do a podcast? This is so sick. Do you know what? I think we should do a follow-up in a couple of months or whatever it is. You know, I know the time differences might be a bit difficult, but I definitely think we should do a follow-up because I'm so interested to hear how things are going to develop with the brand here in Sydney. I say here, well, where you are in Sydney, and, you know, how you're going to marry up in London and so on. And honestly, I think this chat has been so insightful to hear that, you know, because it is a lonely, I've always said being a content creator and running your own business is lonely.
Yeah.
I find that a lot of people sometimes don't understand why you do certain things.
Yeah.
And I really want to bring a platform together where, you know, that people need to know that they're not alone, call it that, and that we are facing all these same issues together. And I really want to break that stigma of, you know, I don't want to share how much I charge. Well, you know, or I don't want to share my trade secrets of whatever X, Y, Z. I really want to break that because I think that education is absolutely fundamental to anything in life.
Yeah.
You know, we put our children through education from kindy all the way up to, you know, university, doctorate level and so on. Why is it that, you know, as a creative, we can't do a similar thing and resonate to other creatives that have got a camera in their hand? And if we can give them a pointer of like, this is how I did it, I've always believed that no one's going to be able to replicate exactly your work. They'll have a similar vibe, but they'll put their twist onto it, especially if you're emerging and you're finding your feet. You will always find a way to put your own stamp on things. And I find that that's really, really important because that's part of their growth and that's part of their development. So at the end of the day, I don't see that as a threat. I see that as a compliment that people reach out to you and I and ask for those kind of things of like for support. And honestly, having you on here has been amazing.
Just to say also credit to you, like what you are doing for like creators is huge, you know, like I think it's really great that we have these educational platforms and educational for our clients as well, and understanding how we all work. And you're right, it is a lonely place, like talking to yourself in your own little bubbly head every day. But so what you're doing here, I feel very grateful to have me on. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you. And obviously I'll link all your details, your Instagram, your website, whatever it might be in the...
Thank you.
I feel like a YouTuber. Like this is like only episode 3. What is it? Subscribe, like, whatever it is, share. And then I'll put all your details below and all that kind of stuff, whatever. But, you know... I presume they can find you on Instagram. People can DM you. I'm slowly, you know, slowly get on the... That's it, you know, perfect. So, Jen, thank you so much for coming on.
You, Lloyd.
And, you know, the power of internet. I love it. Like, we're in 2 different cities and
we started off in Switzerland and now
God.
And then
amazing.
Now we're in Australia. I love it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jen. And can't wait to see what comes next.
Have a good rest of your day. Bye.